Hello, welcome everyone to Sport Tech Daily's episode with James Barber from SBG Sports Software. As always, James, look, thanks for coming on, and we'll get started with yourself. Firstly, how's everything going on your end in the UK?
Yeah, interesting. I think it's been an interesting last 3 months for everybody. And I think we've got to, as a company, looked at it and how we could excel in this situation, how we could look at what we do as a company and how we bring through development. So we've kind of took that opportunity to work heavily with teams, with individuals to make sure that they're upskilled with the software, but also learning new areas of the features that we've implemented over this time. So it's an interesting situation for everyone, but hopefully we're slowly coming to the end of it with obviously the Bundesliga obviously starting a few weeks back, and then the Premier League starting today. So yeah, hopefully we're over that hump, and now we can start with some live sport, which is exciting for everybody.
Awesome. Okay, can you tell us about SBG?
Yeah, sure. So SBG is a company. So where we kind of started is way back in motorsport. So in 2008, we started working around how we could look at using data in motorsport. So our founder, our CEO, started working with a motorsport team in Formula One, looking at how they could utilize data and how they can make more use of data available and linking that to video. So the journey kind of started there, and that kind of led on to working with other motorsport teams, noticeably, obviously working with Mercedes throughout their successful years recently. But that's kind of taken us as a company to provide real-time performance analysis and decision support tools for not only teams, but competitions, regulators, spectators, and media in elite sports. But the kind of overview of the company is essentially we look at what we do with data and how we can make that more useful to teams and analysts, certainly, and using it in the pre and post view, but also live analysis, and then getting visualizations to utilize for pre-event planning, post-event reviews in either motorsport or obviously more recently in the football side of the market that we work in now.
Awesome. Okay. And look, Race Watch and Match Tracker, I had to play around on your website, and it looks super interesting from a sporting fan's point of view. Can you give us a basic version of how teams and organizations use those products?
Yeah, certainly. So I'll start with Race Watch first, because that was kind of the product that everything's kind of developed from. So as I was saying, so in 2008 we kind of started working with multiple teams, and obviously strongly working with Mercedes-AMG. And what it essentially does is it works to build strategies utilizing the data they have available. So it's taking in multiple data sources from different GPS, video and car driver data to essentially accurately formulate strategies to outwit other teams. That's kind of the complexity of it. But what it can obviously take in is different live data sources. So you can take in timing, GPS, telemetry, weather and track state, and we kind of ingest all of that data and then produce complex real-time calculations. And then they kind of can get sent out into outputs via a live API to broadcast centers, and then also get then incorporated, not only for the teams, but also into the broadcast feed. But this is obviously all done in-house. It's done in-house out of our head office in central London. And it's using algorithms and statistical modeling to help predict race outcomes, depending on certain variables and reacting to kind of in-race events as they occur. So really kind of looking at how, we can use that data live to make key decisions. And, naturally that's where it kind of took us into the football market, So we had a team, a Premier League team, look at the software at a race weekend. So what we did then, they're like, okay, this is quite interesting. How can we start to utilize this?
Yeah. And
we began working with that team around probably 7 years ago now. And it was looking at how, they had some data available. And it was looking at how that data could then help their process as analysts. Because I think that where data was back then was still quite new, where data was in motorsport was kind of very embedded. Certainly now it's obviously changed in football. It's getting certainly more improved. But effectively, that's how Match Tracker was grown. We started working with that team for a good, as I said, for 7 years now. And since probably 2.5 years, we've now working across not only the Premier League, but we work strongly within the Bundesliga and what we're doing in Germany. We also just opened an office in the US, so we started working with teams out in the MLS. We work with the Danish Federation and work with them also as from a league standpoint, but also now started branching out into France and Germany. But essentially what Match Tracker does is very similar to RaceWatch. You know, it effectively brings in the data, but also brings in video. And what we wanted to build there was kind of working with analysts and coaches to simplify that data and make it more usable, you know, because I think the key thing is yes, there's a lot of data and there's a lot of data available. How can that be used and used simply for analysts to then push video directly to the coach? You know, the important thing is pulling video out. And if you can get to that quicker, especially with, you know, the hectic schedules that are certainly coming up with the Premier League and certainly what's happened in the Bundesliga, it's that ability to look at your opposition from across multiple games, but also get that key insight, you know, because if you can bring in, you know, 10, 20 matches directly into Match Tracker, have the tracking data, the eventing data, and also live video, also video into there, you know, you can start to build your outputs and your workbooks, looking at different styles of play, looking at how maybe the opposition progresses in a certain phase of play, but also from a recruitment standpoint, see, you know, who do you go and look at when this transfer window opens and when this crazy time's going to be of what happens in a recruitment standpoint for teams. So it's really excelled now into a software that is really kind of taking on the market in terms of what we can do with data, but also, you know, allowing teams to bring their own data into that as well, which is always key, because you've always got that subjective layer that, you know, coaches will want to implement, each team wants to implement. So we added the ability now into the software to make sure that you can not only have the automated data, but also have your subjective coded data in Match Tracker too. So it's interesting now that, you know, we have a lot of meetings with teams and we show them what we do in racing and motorsport and certainly Formula One. And, you know, them sort of techniques that we apply in there, teams are looking at it and going, hey, this would be amazing if you could bring this into Match Tracker. So, you know, it's that cross relationship now that certainly from a football standpoint, you know, teams are really starting to use the data available. But we actually branched out also like 1.5 years ago into developing a rugby version of this as well. So, you know, utilizing the data that you have in rugby union and rugby league, and building a Match Tracker around that, because again, it's data, it's a process. And if we can simplify that process for an analyst and get them to that game moment quicker, then, you know, that's what we're building the software for.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So, and look, on a personal level, you know, you've been with SBG for over a couple of years now. Tell us about your role there and how it's evolved over the last couple of years.
Sure. So I'm sales manager for SBG. So I come in and, you know, the remit really was to work across the Premier League and see how we could branch out with the customers that we already had. You know, so this was about 2.5 years ago. We was working with maybe around 5 customers back then in the Premier League. But we wanted to see how, you know, we could use the software, you know, not only Match Tracker, but also Focus, and seeing how that could branch out into Premier League, certainly to start. And, you know, as soon as we started working in the Premier League, you straight away start to get some traction in different leagues, you know. So certainly over my last year, you know, we've branched out the business to have the US operations. So, you know, that got busier. So we opened an office in Chicago, which is amazing. Wow. But likewise, I now look after what we do in Germany within certainly the Bundesliga and Bundesliga 2. Because again, you know, they've got the same accessibility from a data standpoint. So my role's kind of grown to be looking after not only the UK, but also looking at new business across Germany, working with our team down in Australia and New Zealand and working with the guys down there, and also assisting, you know, what we do across Scandinavia and across the US as well. So, you know, in that 2 years, it's kind of exploded as it does in a software company. You know, it can change overnight, you know, so it's been an exciting journey, and I think it's only going to continue, which is the exciting point, as I said, with the US operations growing now, it's that exciting start. Not only what we grow there, but from a UK standpoint, we've grown as a company with new offices in Manchester, obviously alongside our London office, and then we've also now got offices based out in Berlin, based out in Madrid, and also based down in Brisbane, in Australia. So yeah, it's expanding quite nicely.
Wow. Okay. And look, one thing, I mentioned at the start, Sport Tech Daily, what we're trying to do, at least within Australia, is, I guess, grow out the sport tech community here. So whether it's sports science, analytics, startups, or the more recreational fantasy and sport betting, look, there definitely is a really strong sporting presence in Australia, and sport tech is quite strong here, but there's not, I guess, the presence of that community and the interlinking of that community, I guess, is an area that we're really focused on growing. So you're obviously based in the UK. Is there much of a presence of that community? Are there regular sort of meetups or any sort of networking events? Now that you've been in the industry for a couple of years, like what have you found over in the UK?
Sure. So it's forever changing and forever growing. I think as a community, from what we get from a lot of analysts, they all know each other. Certainly a lot of the head analysts, they've all either worked with each other or kind of gone through that process together. They've all probably been to university, done the same sort of degree, and now they're kind of in their roles of the head of analysis or head of first team analysis. So I think as a community, they are relatively close. Obviously they don't share everything, but when it comes down to software, they certainly become a lot more open because people want to make sure they're making the right decision. And it's key to have that insight. And I think a lot of these teams have that close relationship. They could be an analyst that have been at one team, then they leave to go and be the head analyst at another team. So it has grown, and I think also conferences like the Leicester City conference that they put on last year, the second one that they've done now, that really brings the community together, not only from a football standpoint but also looking at other sport, which is also important. And look, unfortunately, with the COVID situation, obviously that happened, we was unable to put our user group on. But what we're trying to achieve from our user groups now is not only kind of incorporating the football market, but also incorporating our other users, because at the end of the day they can share that information. As I've said before, we put people in touch with what we do in motorsport, because you can see and understand how they're using data, but also how they're using video, and vice versa. Motorsport has probably learned a lot from what we do in video in football, and then football learned a lot from what they did in rugby. So it's kind of I think everyone kind of sees what people are doing different. And football, it's kind of coming on more and more with what they're doing from touchline technology, what they've got access to data live. But I think it's, as a community now, it's growing and improving, which is only going to make it stronger. And we're seeing that across Germany as well. Not only the UK, Germany is very strong in that relationship too, whereas building that community together, certainly in the football market that I work in.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. And look, I think we were talking just before we started recording about, like a personal interest in sport. So for yourself, what are some of the most interesting experiences that you've had, I guess, in the last couple of years whilst you've been with SBG?
Yeah. So, I think there's been a lot of highs, and I think that's been the exciting thing. I think where the company's grown in them 2 years has been exciting. And where the software is now being applied is even more exciting, and the teams that we're working with, certainly. And you may have seen we recently announced a 3-year partnership with Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga. And that's really a good landmark for us as a company, because not only are we just there to work alongside, but we're actually there for them to use our software completely, across using Match Tracker within the first team and the data side of things, using Focus for live video distribution within the academy and the first team down to the touchline, but also using our hub software to store that data and to get relevant clips to individuals, players and coaching staff. So I think, that's been a great case study about how the industry is changing, how, you know, Frankfurt as a football team have taken on something that's utilizing data more, and can see them as a very forefront as a team in understanding the benefits of what you can get from that automation side of things. You know, whereas you're not sitting there coding every game and databasing every match, because, you know, you don't have that time anymore, unfortunately. And, you know, coaches, you know, the sport's so demanding that you want to get as much information as you can to the coaching staff, so that they can then relate that straight back to the training pitch. Yeah. You know, we was working with a goalkeeping coach the other week, and looking at how they can use that game data to look at, you know, average time off their line and average distance off their line from shot outcomes. And, you know, the information they can pull straight from that from in game can then relate straight back to the training pitch. Right. Because they can start to understand and train their goalkeepers specifically around different distances off the line where there's been a successful or unsuccessful save. So really using the data just for simple things like that, you know, not for the complex stuff all the time, but for real simple elements that you can push straight into training. Certainly when you're looking at your opposition from a weekend.
Right. Oh, awesome. Okay. And also I read on the site that SBG won the Queen's Award for Enterprise in 2019. Look, to be honest, I hadn't heard of that before, but it sounds super impressive. Can you tell us about, I guess, what it meant to win the award, and what opportunities arose from it?
Yeah, sure. You know, it was an amazing achievement to win that award. It's a huge honor. You know, it's an accreditation that essentially is equivalent to being knighted in innovation.
Oh, wow.
So kind of, yeah. So what we had to do, we need to demonstrate how our solution revolutionized motorsport, and how we continue to innovate in that area of expertise. So looking at how, you know, as a company we've developed over them years, but also will continue to develop. So it kind of involved primarily two main things. So it's like a detailed description of how RaceWatch is used to enhance racing performance and safety, and a kind of comprehensive testimonials from our F1 customers on the benefits of how the software, and also, you know, the support structure, because that's also key. You know, you can provide the best software in the world, but if you don't have that support team available to pick up the phone on a race day, you know, that's an important side of the company as well. And we kind of pride ourselves on that support aspect. But yeah, you know, it's a globally recognized honor, which kind of endorses our contribution and credibility as a company. And I think it's another proof for our kind of elite customer base that we're an organization which is serious about their industry. You know, not only obviously what we do in motorsport, but going forward with football too.
Cool. All right. In terms of sports, you know, you mentioned you obviously moved into rugby in the last year and a half or so. What are, you know, some of the exciting projects that you're working on currently, and I guess what's coming up for the company in the next 12 months or so?
Yeah, like, as I said, you know, as a company at the moment, our focus is certainly mainly with a lot of teams. So the recent announcement with Frankfurt is something we're really working strongly with them as a team to ensure that we can kind of help them in that process. Yeah. We're also part of the DFB Hackathon with Eintracht, looking at how we can essentially automate phases of play in more detail for these teams, and looking at more specifically around what they're trying to code as an analyst, you know, really trying to save them time. So, you know, that's a really exciting project they've been working on over the last 6 months. Obviously with COVID, it's changed slightly, and the timeframes have changed. But as a company, that's a really exciting project that we're working within football. Obviously there's projects that we're working in other sports also, which are going to be really exciting, certainly over the next couple of years. And, you know, once we can start to get them out into the market, it'd be really exciting. But I think the key thing as a company for us is to look at utilizing data that is available to teams, you know, and making sure that we can give them that full workflow. We can streamline that workflow as well, so that they do have more time to spend with the coaching staff to then relate that back to the training pitch. So it's really ensuring that as a company, we continue to develop. We ensure that we're applying the features that the clients want. You know, being very agile in our development is key to what we do as a company. So ensuring that, you know, what we develop is important for them too. And, you know, that relates into all sports. It relates into what we do in football. It relates to what we do in motorsport, rugby, hockey, tennis. You know, these developments will continue to improve. And, you know, as a company, we're very client driven. And I think that's really important when you're a performance analysis company and a software company, certainly, because if you're not driven by your clients, you can ensure that you're putting in the right information to the software. And going forward, that's the main aim of the business, to ensure that we are driving that market. We're driving it certainly from a data perspective, and that we continuously work with our teams to ensure that they have a full workflow within SBG's product suite.
Right. Excellent. Well, look, James, it's funny. I went through the SBG side and obviously did a bit of research beforehand, but having a chat with you now and understanding more about the company, I'm even more blown away than I was before. So thanks for coming on and giving us such a nice explanation of the work that you guys do. And very much looking forward to, I guess, staying in touch and seeing what you guys have in store over the next year or two.
Sounds great. No, we'll certainly keep in touch. And thank you very much.
Excellent. And we'll have links up to the site and obviously your LinkedIn and everything when we put it up. But yeah, thanks again for coming on.
No worries. Have a good evening. Speak soon.
Excellent. Cheers.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to check out more of our content, go to sporttechdaily.com or follow us on social media across Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram.